Hello, everybody. I did get an email from a student asking me if I was going to post an example Othello or Trifles essay, and I said no. And the reason for that is that I want to challenge you guys, but I will give you some help. Um, so let me first of all point out to you that down in Module 4, there are two things that you need to pay close attention to if you're going to address either of the two Othello prompts. And one is information that relates really to prompt 1. It's on the Elizabethan Great Chain of Being or the Divine Order, and you should take that into consideration in your argument. And the other thing is, and I think it's this away, yeah, are the characteristics of the Shakespearean tragic hero. Okay, now notice there are something like 9 of them. That's a nice dramatic photo, isn't it? That you want to refer to while you're writing your paper if you're addressing the second prompt. Okay, so let's look at some example thesis statements, or how you might address the prompts. All right, the first prompt simply asks whether or not Othello, not the character but the play, is Othello a racist play, yes or no? And so there are two ways to answer that. Thesis: William Shakespeare's Othello is not a racist play. Or thesis: William Shakespeare's Othello is a racist play. And I'm not going to post this. I'm going to make you guys watch this video. So there you have it. I'm not going to make things that easy for you. All right. Anyway, go back to the first thesis. William Shakespeare's Othello is not a racist play. So it's your job as a writer to back up that thesis statement. Why is it not a racist play? Well, we talked about that a lot. And here's some things that I just gleaned from the discussion that we had. Well, first of all, Othello is a respected general. He's well liked by all the good guys, we would say. The Duke, the Senate, they like him. Cassio likes him. Desdemona loves him. So he's a respected general who's well liked. It's really only the racist characters in the play that hate him. Iago, the villain, Rodrigo, who wants Desdemona, and Brabantio, Desdemona's father, who, just has his head in the wrong place. Let's put it that way. All right, another reason. Yes, it's true. Othello is duped by Iago, but he's the villain, and everybody else in the play likes and trusts Iago as well until the very end. So I don't think you can argue it's Othello's fault. Another point. Iago plays on Othello's internalized racism, making him doubt himself. This is when we were talking about insecurity a lot. But it's human of Othello. Here he is, this Moor from a different culture, who's been at war in his whole life and has never been a man of the court. He's a black man in a white world, and so it's pretty easy for Iago to play on that, his insecurities about that. Oh my goodness, Othello says, maybe, Desdemona doesn't like me after all because I'm black and I'm old and I'm not, one of these smooth-talking guys from the courts, blah, 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 blah. And so you could conclude that the play isn't racist, but the point is really to show how destructive racism can be because Othello is made its victim. All right? The rest is up to you. You find the places in the play to back this stuff up. You find the textual evidence. The opposite thesis: William Shakespeare's Othello is a racist play. Well, again, we argued about this in the discussion. We could say, well, Othello is a black man. Yep, he's a Moor, a Turk, apparently a converted Muslim. Christians of the time would have seen that as no. Desdemona disobeys her father to marry him. Whoops. Given the great chain of being, and I just showed you where a description of that was on canvas, The play sets us up, or at least the Elizabethan audience of the time, sets us up. They would have seen that and go, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. Disaster's coming down the pike. And they wouldn't have been wrong, right? Another point that makes it arguable that the play is racist, yeah, Othello, the character, he's easily played by Iago to be a fool. At the end of the day, next point, end of the play, Othello, the black man, murders his innocent white wife. There you have it. And then a final point is that the play is full of racist insults, stereotypes regarding Othello. And so I think you can argue this point either way. It's just up to you to get the evidence out of the text and organize it. All right, the second prompt simply asks whether or not Othello as a character meets the requirements of the Shakespearean tragic hero. So again, yes or no. So here are some possible thesis statements. Othello does meet all the requirements of the Shakespearean tragic hero. That makes the play well executed. You just show us how he does it. Or Othello doesn't meet all the requirements of the Shakespearean tragic hero, which makes the play a huge disappointment. And then you show us where he falls short. And then the last one is Othello meets most, but not all, of the requirements of the tragic hero, but it doesn't make the play any less tragic. It's up to you. All I'm going to ask here is an important thing. Don't write this paper as if you were filling out a yes or no checklist. Look at the 9 characteristics. Some of them are very short and easy. They can be combined into a single paragraph, but I'm not going to give you the answer to how to do that. I'm going to challenge you to figure it out for yourself. All right. Let's maybe try to avoid these 5-paragraph things. All right. Anyway, probably the biggest part here is going to be arguing what Othello's tragic flaw actually is. And we threw out jealousy, we threw out foolishness, we threw out insecurity, we even threw out pride. So you're going to have to make an argument for that. And I'll give you a teeny weeny hint. The tragic hero has to acknowledge his flaw at the end. So does that flaw that Othello acknowledges match up with what you think his flaw is? That could really drive you to answer this question one way or another. Then the last prompt has to do with your fail-safe, which is Trifles. The more times I read that play, the more I marvel at it, really. But this is an easy question. What are the trifles in the play? How do they solve the crime? Do you agree with what the women do? Yada, yada. All right, so if you'd have followed the discussion well, you should be able to argue that the trifles of the play are the actual evidence for Mrs. Wright's motive, which the men actually miss because they're busy marching through the barn and, looking at places such as that. So the trifles aren't silly little trifles at all. They're the evidence. And then, so you just have to build the case the way the women sort of build the case for what Mrs. Wright's motives are or motive is. And then you have to argue whether or not the women are justified in their decision to hide. Not even to hide, well, not to hide the evidence, they just keep it to themselves, really. So there you have it. I think that's more than enough that you need to write this paper. But don't forget the Writing Center. I keep drumming on that, but it's, extra credit. 3 points, look at Module 8. And all right, that's enough for today, and I will speak to you later in the week. Thanks. Have a good one.